Welcome back. Hillary Clinton is hitting back this morning after Donald Trump questions her qualifications to be president. In a new ad, Clinton goes after Trump on foreign policy, comparing her experience to his. Watch this.
The entire international community must prevent Iran from acquiring a nuclear weapon.
Saudi Arabia,
we have weapons. Saudi Arabia, absolutely.
The United States welcomes the agreement today for a ceasefire in Gaza.
The difference between Hezbollah and Hamas does not matter to you yet, but it will.
It will when it's appropriate.
Dr. Walid Phares is with us, Fox News Middle East and terrorism analyst and a foreign policy advisor to Donald Trump's campaign. Sir, good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Morning, Maria. Thank you.
So what did you think of that ad?
Well, that ad is fantastic. It's going to open the path for Mr. Trump to respond and his campaign, asking questions about what happened to that reset button in Russia. Crimea was invaded. Eastern Ukraine is no longer under the sovereignty of the central authorities. What is happening in Syria, in Libya, in Egypt, in Iraq? If you have the whole hour, I'll be here to name all these countries and crisis. What will be their response at this point in time?
So you're saying that, sure, she has experience, but she's got a long list of visits and meetings and activities in terms of foreign policy that were failures.
If the list is what it counts, then Senator McCain would have won over Senator Obama in 2008, right? And or President Clinton was the one who won in 1992 over somebody who was 8 years in the White House, President Bush, 41, and before that he was the director of CIA. It's not just the list. What you have done with that time and what are the files talking about today?
How will that resonate for people? What do you think Donald Trump needs to do to make the case that he, in fact, would be better on foreign policy?
Well, number one, obviously he is moving from the primaries very quickly, quicker than what we thought, to the national election. Of course, there will be statements, there will be speeches. He had a speech, and in that speech he made very many points to be clear with regard, for example, the Arab and Muslim world, reaching out deep at the time that the Arab Spring has collapsed under the watch of 2 terms of the Obama administration. And of course, with time, there will be debates, and I'm looking forward to those debates coming over the summer.
What about the temporary ban on Muslims? What about his commentary on Mexicans? Is this going to hurt with those groups going into the general election?
Well, look, when we talk about an interim ban on Muslim or on any community, that is a suggestion until the administration and the bureaucracy would find answers to the jihadi penetration, on the one hand. And we talk about 250,000 of mostly Muslims who died in Syria, and those who are refugees in Sinjar Mountain or the Darfur situation. When we make that comparison, believe me, most of Arabs and Muslims would say, we understand that the United States needs to defend itself, but we need a foreign policy that takes care of us here at home where we are.
Okay, so you think that it will resonate with Americans of all stripes because his words are fighting for Americans?
Look, Americans today are not like 25 years ago or 30 years ago. They have social media, and if you see what the debate is happening there, how people are reacting with people, multiple communities, they are very smart. People are smart. They understand. They look at the results of foreign policies. For example, in Egypt, partnering with the Muslim Brotherhood was not a good idea. The Iran deal that is now being taken as an important piece of achievement is a disaster. The Iranian people were abandoned in 2009. The Gulf is not very happy with our foreign policy. So if we go over that list of achievements, I think Mr. Trump will have an edge.
Yeah, it's really interesting because certainly the Iran deal was pretty much, most Americans were against it. And here we have a deal that most people are saying needs to be either restructured or done away with. Let me ask you about the international reaction, the communities away from the United States. Who wins on that?
Well, of course, those who are supportive of the Obama-Clinton foreign policy are going to be supporting, and we see it in their media worldwide. And of course, the left movement in Europe that is supportive of it. But everybody else, I mean, ask the Russians, a majority of Russians, or people in the Balkans, or ask a majority of Egyptians, the largest Arab Muslim Sunni country, or in other parts of the Middle East, what do they think? If you translate only what has been said about Mrs. Clinton in Egypt, from Arabic to English, just translate that and you'll have your answer.
And I guess we haven't really heard Donald Trump talk much about that reset in Russia. Is he going to be using this on the campaign trail given that she's now pushing her experience as one of the reasons that she believes she'll win?
Well, let's remember that Mr. Trump is finishing the primary. He has finished the primaries and getting ready for the national election, for the convention, on the one hand. On the other hand, you have a Secretary of State, of course, with all her travels and meetings, but then when the debate will begin, it has to be about the subjects, not about if I had tea with the Queen of England or not. It has to be about what do we do in Syria in the future, not 20 years ago.
And you think he's ready for that?
I think he's very ready for that. Actually, just by naming all these crises and proposing, then you're going to see a major difference between, you know, the achievements of the past and the plans for the future.
Walid, good to have you on the program this morning. Thanks so much.
Thank you for having me.
Walid Phares joining us there.